Thank you so much for clicking on this video and welcome to the Officers Commission. Today we're going to be interviewing a current commander in the United States Air Force, a former C-17 pilot, and an evaluator pilot for remotely piloted aircraft. He's going to be sharing leadership advice, he's going to be sharing stories about his C-17 life and what it took to get to where he was, and currently his transition into the RPA career field. Additionally, he'll be sharing some leadership advice for those of you who are looking to commission and just some overall life advice to help you become a better person and a better leader. Thank you so much for clicking on this interview. I hope you enjoy it. So let's get right into it. So I wanted to say thank you so much for joining the Officers Commission today. As you know, the Officers Commission is a YouTube page that is aimed to help as many people applying for officer training school or any other commissioning source out there. And just to kind of provide information on different career fields and leadership for those young enlisted individuals or even civilians that are looking to become officers in the Air Force. Today, I have with us a Colonel Foster, former C-17 pilot and current MQ-9 pilot, evaluator pilot as well. And I'm just super excited to have him here because he is the commander of my squadron that I'm a part of at this moment. And so, Colonel Foster, if you'd like to just introduce yourself for the masses, I'm sure everyone would love to meet you and just hear your story. And then I also have a few questions to ask, and we'll try and get through all these questions as well.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, my name is Brent, and I'm glad to be your commander. I'm glad to command the. It's a dream come true. I don't deserve it. I'll just tell you that. I think every step of the way, I'm grateful for what God is doing and all the good gifts, to include opportunities and the ability to influence people's lives for the better. Sometimes you have to be the wall and the standard bearer, but other times you get to be the encourager. So
yeah,
my background, like you said, came from C-17's, and we'll talk a little bit more, I think, in your questions about my history and whatnot. But other than that, yeah, I'm glad to be on here and talking with you.
awesome. Well, like I said, I'm super appreciative. Kind of like break the ice. I was thinking of questions to ask you. And I kind of like did a test run with my wife, and I asked a stupid question about cereal. She was like, "Don't ask that question." So she gave me a question to ask, and I'm gonna try my best to remember. She said to ask if it was the apocalypse, right? And you were probably the last person on Earth, or you and your family at least, and you got to fly or pretty much get to an airport and pick any plane that you wanted and fly. What plane would it be, and why?
I'd probably pick like a Pilatus PC-12. I can get into remote locations.
Okay.
I could fit my whole family, probably our luggage. I think we could put some weapons on it if we need to. And it's got great range,
Yeah.
and it's easier to fix than a jet engine.
So when you say put some weapons on it, do you mean like mount some Hellfires or something on the wing, or
I got
something?
a lot of kids. They just, they got a man a gunner somewhere.
Okay. Okay. Well, that was our icebreaker. So I kind of want to just go for it, get into it now. So warm up and foundation questions I'll start out with. So before we get into the flying and leadership side of things, can you share a little bit about your background and what originally drew you to the Air Force?
Yeah, so I actually never wanted to be in the Air Force, and I never wanted to be a pilot. My dad was a chief in the Air Force Reserve out at McCord, and he's a police officer, retired now too. And I thought, I don't know. He went through Desert Storm, and I thought, man, I really want to do that. But you know how you idolize your dad,
Yeah.
growing up. And I think one day I didn't do great in school either. I'm a pretty poor student in high school. My parents got divorced. A lot of personal turmoil, and eventually I got a job, an internship, and the guy said, "You got to go to college." And then eventually I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And I went to community college. And then after that, I got a speeding ticket, and I was like, "Man, I don't know what to do with my life right now. I'm kind of sad." This is around Christmas time, and off to the side of the road, I'm like, "God, help me figure out what I'm going to do with my life. I'm lost." And there's this little airstrip. This house is on this airstrip in Washington.
Okay.
And I walked over and knocked on the guy's door, and I said, "Hey, can I learn to fly?" And he said, "Sure." And since then, I was like, "Okay, well, I'm going to go and fly then." It was amazing.
That sounds really
It's
cool.
weird.
it really is weird. You don't really meet a lot of people that, can say that they've grown up near an airstrip. I know for me, I grew up in like the brick city up north, New Jersey, New York. So that stuff isn't really around where I'm from. So a lot of people, have unique backgrounds, but yours is definitely unique. Quick follow up question just to what you said based off of, going up and asking, can I fly? Did he like charge you, or was it just like, hey, just come with me and fly. I'll teach you.
Just got into a little Cessna,
That
and
is
then I
so
was like,
cool.
"This is like a go kart," and we just started cruising around. And then he's like, "Hey, if you want to get your license, go check out this airfield down the road.
Yeah.
It's called Thun Field. It's near Mount Rainier."
Okay.
And we went over there, and I was like, "Okay," I did that, and finally, I graduated from community college, like a couple months later, and then I was like, "Well, I'm going to go be a pilot then." So I went to Washington State University,
Hmm.
and there's a little airstrip between Moscow, Idaho, and Pullman, Washington. It's only like 4 or 5 miles away. So while I was working on my engineering degree, I decided to get a pilot's license. So I took out a $10,000 loan, and it took me about a month, and I got my pilot's license from nothing to fully qualified to instrument rated. It was pretty good.
When you say $10,000, flight training today is super expensive. So I remember when I did my private, my mom actually kind of financed it. She paid around $13,000, $14,000, and that was several years ago. But today,
Oh, well, don't get me wrong. The pilot's license was actually only like 5,500.
oh, okay,
Everything else was, building instrument time and
yeah.
cross countries, and yeah.
So just my private was $13. So back then, 5,500 versus 13, 14. Inflation has definitely taken a toll on the aviation community. I'll say that. But kind of leading into the next thing. So I had a moment in my life where I was just like, aviation just started to click. Um, what was that moment for you, and where did you know, and like how did you know that this was the path that you wanted, other than just doing the flying with your neighbor and then just getting your license? When did you say like, okay, this is what I want to do for my career?
It was when I went to ROTC,
Okay.
and at ROTC, there's a bunch of guys that they already knew how to fly. Their parents had planes, or they had airstrips, and these guys, they were part of a club called Sierra Hotel, and you could understand what that means.
Yeah.
And so they would take out, their own planes, or they would take out rented planes, and then fly in close proximity, non-formation flight.
Hmm.
It was formation. And you would
Okay.
have a bunch of, civil airplanes flying around doing squirrely things. And I
Yeah.
thought, man, this is great. It wasn't until I actually went through pilot training that I realized how stupid some of that was, how dangerous some of that was,
Yeah.
how underpowered those aircraft are flying through the mountains. Some of the turbulence that we hit, the weather patterns that I wasn't really aware of, getting iced up, flying at night in the weather, dropping, trying to, scud run.
Yeah.
It was foolish, but it was pretty exciting. And I'd say that's probably what sealed the deal for me. And we knocked out ground school there in our detachment. It was great.
So would you say
I'm
like,
glad I lived.
I'm glad you live too. I all of that stuff is pretty like risky, because even myself having my commercial, my CFI and things like that, I'm still myself just really conservative, right? So would you say, not knowing what you know now, did that make you a more confident pilot back then? Like knowing that you've made it through certain situations like that, like the scud running and, icing up and things like that? Because I've personally never been in an aircraft where I've, had to encounter icing, but n- being that you've dealt with that as a civilian pilot first, do you think that kind of built your confidence going into your aviation career in the Air Force?
I think it initially built my confidence, but then in the end, I realized that there's old pilots and bold pilots, but there's
Yeah.
no old bold pilots.
Yeah.
And I was grateful that I didn't have an accident early on. I thought that I was relatively safe. I thought that I was in control, and then coming through UPT down at Laughlin Air Force Base in 2007 to 2009. I realized that I was pretty foolish, and I was grateful to make it out of some of those situations.
Yeah. Well, I think we all learn from some of our mistakes. I've done some foolish things in an airplane. I don't think I'll say it right now, but I'm grateful to have made it through as well. But moving on to the next one, what was the training like for you early on, and how do you think it shaped you who you are how do you think it shaped you to become who you are as an officer?
Are you talking UPT training, or are you talking like
UPT.
IFT or?
I would say like maybe officer training. Oh, no, you went to ROTC, right? So through ROTC, how did that training and then transitioning to UPT and then, at the FTU, like how did all the training kind of combined help you become the officer you are today?
I think that UPT. Well, I'll start with ROTC. I think ROTC kind of gave you an idea of what the Air Force was going to be like. It's more of a caricature of what the Air Force is like, but it is a good introduction.
Yeah.
It's a good introduction to uniform wear, customs, and courtesies. It's a good introduction to reading AFIs, understanding Air Force culture, history, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, it's also a good place where people that are relatively like-minded, have similar goals, can go and build each other up and cooperate and compete in healthy ways. I was grateful for it. There's a lot of things that I was like, I'm never going to use this. And then, just the other day, right, we're doing inspections and formations, and I was like, okay, hearkening back to ROTC and
Yeah.
out to field training. So it's good. It's good information. Things change a lot in the military. I think the good things really don't change a lot, though. They stay pretty static, and professional military bearing is one of those things that you learn in that sessions program.
Okay.
And then going through UPT, I would say it was hands down one of the hardest things I've ever done. And it was also one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done. If you ask me to go back through UPT right now, I probably, in my hubris, would say yes, but I know deep down it would be very, very difficult again, and I really wouldn't want to do it again. But it was one of the most formidable things in my life.
Yeah.
You build really strong bonds. You learn to push your limits. You try to figure out how you're going to connect all the information that they're fire hosing you into your brain, how it's going to come out your hands and feet, how you're going to respond under pressure, what it's going to be like when your breathing is restricted or when you're really hot, and while you're, fighting motion sickness and things like that, especially early on in the T6 phase, that you have to work through a lot of those things. Plus, you have to demonstrate proficiency in some of the areas that they're looking for. So it really is a formidable experience, probably one that obviously I'll never forget it, and I also never regret it.
Okay. So being that you flew before the military, obviously, how long did it take you to get used to military flying? Let's say for those civilian applicants or enlisted personnel who maybe have a private pilot's license and they get picked up for pilot slots and things like that. What is usually the transition culture or the things that you have to kind of push through to adapt to military flying?
I think very first and foremost is learning how to chair fly, learning how to think through and be disciplined about checklist management, your TOs, your pubs, all the things that you should know off the top of your head, or at least how quickly to get to the references, how to sit. And back in my day, it was, we had a poster on the wall, and I would sit there in a chair for hours upon hours, just going through things. I mean, I think I have the mantra: I got two legs left, seat kit, shoulder harness, visor down. Just kind of a, an old T6 thing.
Yeah.
And I was one of the classes that just transitioned out of T6s or T37's to T6s.
Okay.
So I was kind of one of those early classes down at Laughlin, 0906. And so first off is learning how to chair fly, learning how to study, learning how to devote yourself to doing something that's incredibly boring but could save your life.
Yeah.
And then stand up. Stand up was formidable. Stand up was crazy in the beginning, where you're stressed. Everybody's looking at you. You can't really move a whole lot. You've got a checklist in front of you. You're standing at attention. You're trying to process everything that's going on. And then you have the aircraft.
Yeah.
And then everyone does I have the aircraft. I'll maintain aircraft control, handle the situation, take the proper actions, land as soon as conditions permit, sort of thing. But now you actually have to do it, and you have to do it with a very steady bearing.
Mm-hmm. So I would assume that was extremely intimidating. And for those who don't know what stand up is, it's pretty much where the instructor will provide an emergency scenario, and they'll pretty much tell you everything that's going on with the aircraft, and then they'll pretty much say, now it's your aircraft. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is where you now use a little bit of your general knowledge, your GK, and then you also know what's in the checklist. You know which checklist to go through, and you kind of methodically walk through each step of the checklist to bring the emergency situation to a safe conclusion. Would that definition of stand up suffice for people who may not know?
Yeah, that's about what's happening. But the hard part is that everyone is sitting kind of around the room waiting to see who's going to get picked.
Yeah.
And you want to hear the words, take a seat. What you don't want to hear is sit down.
Yeah. That's an indication that you messed it up.
That you're probably going to have a talk afterwards. Yeah.
All right. So you went through pilot training, and obviously there's a list that you're given of aircraft that are available, right? What, if you could remember, what was your list? And when you ultimately found out what you were flying, was that your number one? Were you super excited? Or was it like, okay, this is cool, I can do this? Like, just take me through that whole process.
Well, so actually it starts in 2004 when I actually had a friend who introduced me to the Klamath Air National Guard and brought me down there to do some FAM rides and ultimately an interview. And I did really well there, but my wife was really interested in going back home, where she's from and I'm from, which is McCord Air Force Base. And so when I was a little kid, I used to watch the F-111 aardvarks, the F-15Cs, and the C-17's, and flying overhead in my backyard as I was living in Spanaway. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And so now I'm in this position. I'm like, man, those are old memories that are all coming back. And
yeah.
What do I want to fly? And I was like, well, let's go try the F-15. The F-15 was awesome, and I thought it was great. But our life took a different direction, and we said instead of doing a direct commission from the reserves into the Guard, we're going to do the ROTC into active duty and compete for a pilot slot. So I competed for a pilot slot, and I got that. I may have been a little bit bold. They asked me, what are my top jobs? And I said, pilot, pilot, and pilot. And then if there's a fourth option, pilot. And I was pretty determined that if I was going to do something, I was going to do that.
Yeah.
No shade in any direction. I just really wanted to try and see if I could do that.
Yeah.
So I kind of burned the bridges there. Anyways, I got picked up for that, and then I went through pilot training. And I think I'm good. I'm not the best. Man, there's some guys in there that were just fantastic. They were able to process information so quickly. They were able to translate it out their hands. They could make that aircraft perform the way they wanted to. And it took me a little bit more work. I felt like I had to work really hard at it. I had to study harder. It didn't come as natural to me, but then it started to warm up, started to feel good. And my number one pick was C17's back in McCord. And so as I went through pilot training, phase 1 was the ground stuff. Phase 2 was the T6, and then phase 3 was the T1s. On drop night, I was hopeful that I would get C17's to McCord, and I did.
Well, that's awesome. When I look at C17's, I think they're a beautiful plane. A little bit about me. I started off my career enlisted as a maintainer on MC-130Js. And so, me about to go through undergraduate pilot training, that's a plane that I'd love to go back to, right? Because I think that plane is amazing. But I do think the C-17 has an amazing mission. You get to travel so much. I know, like, people say you're gone a lot, and I'm sure you can attest to that. But I do think the C-17 is probably one of the best planes the Air Force has in its inventory. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would. I actually, just to correct something, I misspoke. I think I saw C-141s flying overhead when I was a little kid, and the C-17s replaced those.
Yeah.
And my dad, being out there at the base, my sister actually is a loadmaster on C-17s now as a senior airman, or I think she may be a staff now. My brother was a staff sergeant in the Air Force. They all did medical stuff. But I mean, as soon as I went out and saw the C-17, I thought, holy moly, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then flying it, it's unbelievable. I mean, I remember just flying low levels fast, doing 60-degree angle banks in Washington, in South Carolina, North Carolina, up in Alaska, all over the place. I've done combat in Afghanistan and Iraq and other places. I've done a lot of airdrop. I was airdrop qualified. I've done combat airdrops. And then I've flown around the world multiple times and landed on just about every continent. I tell you, C-17 goes to Antarctica.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Lands on, Pegasus, and there's like an ice strip down there, and then there's another strip. But I didn't go on any of those missions. Those are typically reservists that were out of accord doing that. But I always wanted to, and I was always really impressed with the maneuverability, the power, and the overall performance of what the C-17 can do. But it does have its limits, and that's pretty interesting to find those.
What is one limit that comes to mind that you could think of just off the top of your head of the C-17?
20,000 foot per minute descent with thrust reversers in flight.
That's an incredible limit.
That's crazy. It's a tack descent. It's unbelievable.
I've seen videos of I'm not sure if you've seen him. His name is Sam Eckelm. He used to be a captain in the Air Force. He does a lot of like promotions, and he'll like interview different squadrons and things like that. And he made a video riding on a C-17, and they did like their whole tactical descent. You saw the thrust reversers come out, and he just said he felt like there was 0 G's inside in the plane when they essentially pitched down, nose down.
It's like negative G's. The
negative?
stuff will actually, it's not just floating.
Yeah.
It's like floating to the ceiling.
That's really cool. Yeah. When I think about any other plane,
there's only another airplane that can do that. Is the only other airplane that can do that is the like space shuttle trainer. I think can do that.
Yeah. Because when I think about other airplanes in the Air Force, no other one can like throw on their thrust reversers in flight and then descend. It's only the C-17s. I do think that's cool. But a lot of people
back up on the runway too.
Yeah,
you could like back up on the runway and lower the ramp and have the loadmaster out there directing you. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah. My next one is a lot of people have an image of what heavy airlift flying looks like. What is it actually? From your time, what does it look like day to day?
I would say largely it's very professional. I think. There can be shenanigans, but it's largely professional. It's a group that's constantly trying to improve their skills and to do the mission and stay safe. It's got its own unique flavor. I think it's not known for its extensive briefs and debriefs. I know for airdrop, the mission planning was a bit more extensive.
Yeah.
Flying lower to the ground and doing route studies, and mission planning cell was able to generate a lot of things when we were deployed. Doing some mission planning at Altus was a lot of fun as well.
Yeah.
And then back home, but a lot of times it's you're going to get TACC is going to send you your flight plan. You're going to check it. You're going to go through all the points. Make sure it's a good plan with good fuel, and your cargo is loaded safely. But I would say it's a lot of fun, and you do go to places that you never thought you would go.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't even know where you're at. You just know that that's the right place, with the right cargo, with the right people, and then you get out of there.
You said TACC, and if I can remember correctly, that means Tanker Airlift Control Command or Command Control.
Yeah, Tanker Airlift Command and Control.
And they're the ones that kind of like tell you where you're going. I remember having to deal with them my time on the KC-10, and then even as a on the C-130, like we'd always have to, if we were on the TACC mission, we were always bound to be rediverted to another location because there was another mission that popped up and we weren't going home that day. So
yeah, we didn't always understand the rhyme or reason, but it was kind of like, we're on the road, we're going to go do the job. Everyone eventually got get home-itis, and you had to guard against that, but we're here to serve.
Yeah.
I remember my commander saying that we're effectively doing the Berlin airlift of our time.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of cargo that we were moving into Afghanistan, the amount of work that we were doing in Afghanistan. And I think he was right. It was a lot of work. I remember getting sick. I remember getting tired. I remember trying to organize my sleep so that I would be ready and effective to fly the mission. I
Yeah.
remember just flying exhausted at times, but I also remember a deep sense of pride that was worth it.
Well, I it definitely was worth it. You know, you never realize the impact of your mission until you see like the results of what you did actually come to fruition. Um, do you have any missions, speaking of that, that really stand out that kind of helped you help shape who you are as a pilot or a leader today?
I have a couple. One off the top of my head is going to be the very first mission that I flew overseas.
Hmm.
And I had a crusty, awesome lieutenant colonel. He's a reservist and he was the aircraft commander, and I was his first pilot. And I remember crossing over into Afghanistan from the north, and we cloaked, which is just turning all the lights off and turning IR and turning the internal lights down and putting our night vision goggles on and doing all the things and
Yeah.
making sure that the Kevlar is in place and that the vests are on and all the things that we might need. And I remember thinking I could die right now. We're gonna drop down and we're gonna go into combat. I've never been there before, and I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
And then I remember hearing an old pastor tell me one time. He said, "There's not a thing that you can do that's going to take away or add to one day, one moment of your life. There's not a heartbeat that you can take away, a footstep, a bat of the eye. And so walk this earth with confidence while you have breath."
Yeah.
And I thought, man, that is really helpful right now. And I thought, if I just did that, believed that, and lived like that, I would have a great amount of courage when I'm afraid. And that was the first mission I flew overseas. So it was formidable for me. And I thought every time I get up, I could die. But my fate is already written.
Yeah.
Before time. So I'm just going to walk boldly in it. And that really helped me a lot. And then another mission that was really, really satisfying is we were flying out of McCord. We went through Hawaii, and it's a really long day already. And we got tasked to go out of Pongo Pongo, which is American Samoa, for a service member who was having a child. His wife was having a child out there, but the child is 3 months premature.
Yeah.
And so they need to get the baby immediately out of there, medevaced out of there. And so we sat there on the ramp, and then we got our crew duty day extended. And I think we got it extended out to 24 hours, and we were all pretty smoked. And then finally, this little baby comes on board in an incubator with all the nurses and doctors, the parents. There was family involved, and it was absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
That they were able to deliver the baby, bring him on there, and then we flew to Hickam, where he received care. That was in 2009, and I thought, man, as much as war is about taking life, this is about saving life, and I was so grateful to be a part of that mission.
Yeah, the impact you have across the entire world, no matter which mission you're doing, it's always incredible once you, like I said earlier, once you realize what it is that you're doing, what impact it has on the lives of other people.
Well, there's one additional that I just want to tell you about.
Yeah.
It's when we were doing operational test and evaluation for THAAD, which is the Terminal High Altitude Aerial Defense System. We were able to air launch medium range intercontinental ballistic missiles out of the back of the C-17. And we set a world record for the heaviest airdrop, which was massive, which is a Minuteman missile that went live inside the aircraft for about 6 minutes. And then we did a heavy extraction at 25,000 feet over the Pacific Ocean. And then we were able to, it separates with pyrotechnics from the platform that was air launched. And then it goes up into space where THAAD has to shoot it down on its reentry. And we were doing multiple missile launches at the same time off of like a retired aircraft carrier or a Marine carrier or something like that, some ship. And then our aircraft depressurized at 25,000 feet. So on the hose, pre-breathing oxygen, and that was pretty awesome. And I was working with the Missile Defense Agency doing that.
So you launched a missile out of the back of a C-17, a Minuteman missile, and then it came out, went up into space, and had to be shot down by obviously one of our other assets. But you launched a missile from a C-17.
Yeah,
that's you don't hear about things like that. That's super cool. I know the MC-130J can drop the the mother of all bombs or whatever like that, something like
Moab,
that.
yeah,
The
yeah.
Moab. I did not know the C-17 had like pretty much a similar capability just to launch a different specialized variant of a missile, which is pretty
Well,
great.
so Travis Kinsey and Todd Tidua were just fantastic teammates on those missions, and we had a blast. And we all stayed safe, and we got the job done, and came home to our families.
That is really cool. That's something you taught me something new today. That's really cool. Um, but you went from I want to transition now. You went from flying C-17s to now the MQ-9. At
Yeah.
what point in the transition from C-17s to MQ-9s, what led you to make that decision?
Well, so we're back in McCord, and I start getting skin cancer. I can't really figure out what it is. We've got 3 children at the time, and my wife is like, "Hey, I think our daughter is disabled." And I said, "Okay." My wife's a nurse, and so I trust, she has a pretty good intuition on these things.
Yeah.
And so we start getting her checked out, and we realize that she is disabled. We're not really sure what it is. It's genetic of some sort. And so we're trying to get her care, get her taken care of. My wife is like, "Hey, you can't be gone this much." And I thought, man, this is a really pivotal time in my career, but it's also pivotal time in my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I choose family first every time.
Yeah.
And so my wife and I decided to try to figure out an assignment. We're coming up on our vulnerable to move list, the VML. And so we sat down with our commander. I was an exec at the time, and they had RPA billets. I had no idea what they were. Coming from pilot training, like, you don't want one, right? Like, we didn't go through all this in order to go do that.
Yeah.
That was kind of my thought process, and now it's like, that actually seems like the best thing for my family right now.
Yeah.
And so we took that opportunity, and he said, "Do you want to fly the little one or the big one?" I said, "I don't know which one carries the most weapons." And he said, "Probably the big one." I said, "All right, we'll go there." And then we went to Holloman Air Force Base, where we got TX2, so we did a transition course from manned aircraft to the MQ-9.
Yeah.
And then I landed back in 2013.
2013.
And it's been really good, and it's been a rewarding job. And I would tell you, I've told a lot of people this as well, as it's such a fantastic mission.
Mm-hmm.
There's great job satisfaction in it, and you really do believe and can see the results of protecting America, what we stand for, and our people. And when we look at our families, we could say we're directly protecting them as well.
I mean, the mission is great. I think it depends on the mindset you have when you're going into it, how you may look at the mission, but you definitely are keeping our nation safe, just by the nature of work that we do. My next question is, what were the biggest differences you noticed when moving from a manned cockpit to the RPA Enterprise? Other than, obviously, you're no longer in the air. Outside of that, what do you think the biggest differences were? Either culture, the way you fly, and things of that nature.
Well, there's a few things. I'll just tell you one really funny one. Is I used to sit down in the seat, and I used to do this, and I was looking for my harness. So dumb. It's so dumb, but it's just so instinctive to get in there and to throw your seatbelt on. And,
yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm not going anywhere. It's just funny. I'd say one of the things is there's a lot of people that got non-involved to the assignment. There's a lot of animosity. People thought that they didn't deserve that they didn't know what it was, or they wanted to go fly the fighters. They wanted to go do something else. So they got pulled from their community and thrown out into a desert. And it's tough. And there's a lot of feelings, if you will. And what I noticed is feelings are like cancer. They will eat you up, and they will eat everybody up around you.
Yeah.
And I think that it's such an important job. It's such a good mission that if you just came in there with a good attitude and a good work ethic and a little bit of skill, man, you could really just you could create a culture, and you could build something that's emerging and new and ultimately the future.
Yeah. That's awesome. And you definitely, Well, like you said, if you have a great attitude, your whole environment will shift. Your whole perspective on things will shift. And ultimately, if for those who don't know, like for the most part, you work on teams in the RPA career field. And once you get close with your team, it becomes like your family. And so you guys are all doing this together. You know, you're just hacking the mesh together and doing what you can to protect, us back at home and even our allies and things like that. So it is a great mission. What were any surprises about the MQ-9 mission, like something you didn't expect to enjoy as much as you do?
To enjoy, again, like I'll go back to job satisfaction. I didn't think that I was going to actually appreciate all the work that we were doing to the extent that I do.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of really great people, and I would say the younger folks that are coming into the program now actually give me a great deal of hope. They show up with good attitudes. They're smart. They chose this career field. They like this. This is what they want to do, and they seem in a lot of ways like visionaries.
Yeah.
And so they see what this thing is becoming. They see it. I mean, it really isn't about what airplane you have on the end of this. It's about the dynamic nature, the flexibility, the adaptability, the ability for these crews to learn and adapt their TTPs, their techniques, tactics, and procedures,
Yeah.
To whatever it is that they've got to get after. It's such a cool crew force.
That's cool. When you talk about visionaries, I think about the people specifically on my team, how like everyone just seems so dedicated to improving the community and ensuring that we're operating as efficiently as we can. And it's, I will say the communities that I've been in, you don't see that in every community. And I will say like that's one thing that surprised me. Like we are really dedicated to doing this, and I just think it's amazing. And a lot of people don't know what the RPA or MQ-9 world does, and it's designed that way for a purpose. But in the same breath or the same mindset, it's like when you're doing it, you know what you're doing is important, and you know that it's vital to us.
Well, it's a little bit different
surviving.
because if you think of like the fighter community,
Yeah,
those guys are going to go. They're going to be like excellent tacticians. I mean, largely, right? Like
yeah,
generally speaking, they're going to be excellent tacticians. They're going to be hard workers. They're going to be intense and highly capable. And then they're going to fly, 1.2 training sortie or something like that, unless
yeah,
they're deployed and they're working a lot harder than that, certainly. But their deploy to dwell ratio is better, than most.
yeah,
I would say. I think, and that's kind of from an outside looking in perspective and having some friends and knowing their attributes, their qualities. And then a heavy side is going to be like kind of a lower, like not as push it up in terms of tactics. They're going to be good. They're going to be professional. They're going to know how to fly the airways. They're going to know how to do takeoffs and landings pretty well, air refueling. And then you start, C17's and C130's, I think, are going to get more specialized with low levels, as well as semi-prepared runways, austere locations and stuff like that. But they're long hours,
yeah,
right? Long days, long missions. And so the MQ-9 is kind of a blend. And I would say RPAs in general are kind of a blend where you take that intensity to be better, tactical prowess, the desire to just get out there and just crush it and keep on working hard with the endurance of, like a mobility side. So it is its own unique thing.
yeah.
Desiring to be excellent and having to do it every single day, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 and 366 on a leap year, right?
Yeah.
So it's a enduring and it's a perpetual mission.
A lot of people kind of underestimate the RPA community in regards to like what they can do or what we do. What is it that you think the MQ-9 or just the RPA world in general gets right that maybe the other communities are still working towards?
Well, I would say one of the things that they get, the things that I think we could work on, I'll start there,
Okay.
is I want RPA pilots and sensors to actually understand how valuable they are. And you don't have to go be a fighter pilot to be awesome in the air, to do excellent missions in the Air Force. These guys and gals are just crushing it. They're doing a great job.
Yeah.
One of the things that that I think that they're getting right is a constant process improvement, constantly looking for ways in which they can get better personally, professionally, tactically. Uh, the mission, getting after the bad guys, the targets. I think that there's just a never-ending desire to fly, fight, win.
Okay. With that being said, I kind of like want to move into the leadership side of things now, because
Yeah.
obviously it starts with the culture and how you lead, and development of that attitude to fly, fight, and win. So going into the leadership perspective, you've now led airmen in both manned and unmanned environments. How did your leadership style evolve through those transitions?
Well, I think there's a natural progression as you just get older and you get more experience.
Yeah.
I think you tend to get better at leading. Um, I think early on I cared more about being really good tactically, and I tried to have groups of people that I would encourage and try to lift up. But really, I can see that there was a good emphasis on being good myself.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's misplaced. I think I should be good. I think young airmen really should be good at their job, tactically proficient and reliable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, as I got older, I realized that I have to do more than just be tactically good. I have to figure out how to elevate people around me. I have to build teams. Um, I have to stop caring about myself, and I have to care about them,
Yeah.
and make sure that they are being lifted up, that they are becoming tactical experts, that they are growing professionally and personally. I think that's one of the ways that I grew, is I can see, even when I didn't think I was being selfish or just trying to be excellent myself. I think that if I were to just had the mentality of helping a friend climb a mountain, I also climbed the mountain. If I were to have that earlier, I think that it would have been better leadership.
Yeah.
But I just don't know how many young men and women actually just innately have that. I think that's something that you might grow into and be able to look back on your life and say, "Yeah, I wish I did."
I think it's also something that you could learn from looking at other leaders around you and having, good mentors, because I have someone in my life who started out as a mentor to me, as a good friend today. I actually have two people, and one of the stories that they shared with me in the beginning of our relationship was, their story about how they went to officer training school, and they were a prior enlisted tech sergeant at the time, and they were in officer training school, and this was back when they were wearing BDUs. I'm not sure if you were around during that time, but
I had a pair. Yeah.
okay, but they had BDUs, and he said he was showing up to formation. His boots were shined, and uniform was crisp, and all of that, and he just looked really. He thought he looked really well, and he was standing in formation, and his officer training school instructor was not impressed by him at all, and she wasn't impressed by him at all because he looked really good, but the rest of his peers didn't. And from what I remember, the story he told me, he was pretty much pulled aside and said, "It's not your job to make yourself look good. It's your job to make the other people around you look good." So having that mentality of not necessarily always caring about yourself. Like, yes, you still need to care about yourself, but caring about other people and uplifting them, and giving them the support that they need to be successful is what's ultimately going to in turn make you successful, because the reflection that they're going to, you know, the reflection people are going to see in them is going to shine right back to you. So I think people can learn that just by having great mentors and looking up to other leaders who have that same perspective. Like, I'm this good because my commanders this has pushed me to be as good as I am, has pushed me to be as lethal, pushed me to be as integral as I can, and I think that's just amazing, from a leadership perspective, to just have that outlook on making sure that you're developing the people that are below you, because one day they're gonna pretty much take your place, So you want to make sure that the people taking your place are just as good, if not better, than what you were.
Yeah, I think that's important what you said there, Quincy, is it's not this kumbaya, like love everybody and whatnot. And it can be at times, but really it's about encouraging each other to be more excellent,
Yeah.
to be more professional, to hold the standard, to know the tactics, to be familiar with our jobs, with the rules and regulations that we follow, and to serve selflessly.
Yeah.
So it is being standard bearers for one another.
So with that being said, what would you say is one leadership perspective or leadership lesson that you learned while you were younger that you use as a commander and as a leader today?
I would say hands down, if you want to be a good leader, learn to be a great follower.
Okay.
Learn to be an active follower. Learn to lean into the priorities of those appointed over you. Be about submission. I love being in submission. I
Yeah.
find it to be a great joy and freedom to be in submission. I'm not an idiot in submission. I'm not just blind, doing whatever I'm told. I'm proactive and thoughtful, and I provide good feedback. But I think being a follower is intensely, it's just so immensely important
Yeah.
to be a good follower. And I think it's because there is no top. There's no one on top. It's a circle, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone is in submission to someone and everyone is leading someone else.
Hmm.
And so you should really model what it is to be a good leader, what it is to be in submission, and demonstrate that you are. And I think people are going to see that, and they're going to reciprocate that, maybe or maybe not. But you can set a good example for that. And I think a lot of those leadership qualities that you learn by being a good follower will carry over
Yeah.
into being a great leader.
So being a great leader oftentimes leads to high morale in squadrons. For you specifically, the squadron that you lead, how do you use your leadership, or what do you do as a leader to ensure that your morale stays high while ensuring that the mission is still being completed?
Well, it depends on what you mean by morale. I don't view morale as less work. I don't view morale as taking advantage of the system in some way. I think morale is if we train hard and then we accomplish the thing that we were training hard to do, and then we sit back and we celebrate with one another
Yeah.
the accomplishments that we have. We have something to be proud of, and we worked really hard to accomplish that. And I
Okay.
think that's how morale is built.
Yeah.
It's not by getting free things or like I said, taking advantage of time or opportunities or milking the leave system or whatever it may be. It's about coming together as a team, training for something, doing it well, and then sitting back and having a beer and celebrating with one another.
Yeah. Well, I guess when I say morale, I mean the culture. What is the culture that I think you kind of just explained it, but just to be more detailed in my question, what is the culture that you're looking
Yeah.
to ensure that you're establishing in your unit while being a great leader?
The culture that I'm trying to establish is I want people to take personal responsibility. I want them to be transparent with one another. I want them to be accountable for their actions. I want them to say, I messed up.
Hmm.
And here's how you can not mess up, and make other people better by their examples.
Yeah.
A culture that loves growth, that has that growth mindset, that loves to continue to learn, that has the ability to critically think, that has the ability to even fail in that environment without being raked across the coals.
Yeah.
An opportunity for them to get back on their feet and get stronger. That's the sort of culture, a learning organization, we would call it.
Yeah.
One that loves learning, one that applies problem solving skills to all sorts of things and has a great attitude and builds each other up.
Yeah.
That's really what you're looking for. I mean, I don't care if it's the military or Google or wherever else, you really want to see a group of people that love what they're doing, the job that they're doing, the skill that they're applying, and that they can solve problems, and that they like working with one another, or at least they work well with each other and they build each other up, and no one's trying to step on each other.
And that's what I was kind of like going to say. This can kind of be applicable to any environment or any career field that you're in the military or even outside the military. But the next question, I think, will also do the same thing. It could apply to anyone. But for the military specifically, in your experience, what separates a good officer from a truly impactful one? Or let me replace the word officer with a good leader to an impactful leader. What would separate the good from the impactful ones?
I think a good leader, um, I think a good leader gets the things done that they are required to get done,
Mm-hmm.
and they help people to participate in getting them done. I think a great leader motivates and inspires people to want to get them done because they actually want that.
Yeah.
They actually desire to accomplish that thing. It's not just a task that they're told to do. They actually are bought in to what it is that we're doing. And I think that um, when you have a team that's bought in like that, your job as the leader is to clear a path,
Yeah.
to really take the dog off the leash, if you will, and be a blocker for them, so that the bureaucracy, so that the problems that they would face in accomplishing that get kind of moved out of the way. I mean, that would be, in an idealistic world, that would be what I think is the difference between a good leader and a great leader.
Yeah. Okay. And that makes sense. I think sometimes people have to be transparent to understand, like, you don't automatically become an impactful or a great leader. You have to like go through tiers. So I'll say for myself, I think it'll, and this is me being really transparent, I think it'll depend on the environment that you're in. But I think right now for me, I'm kind of teetering back and forth between that impactful leader and a good leader. And I just think it also depends on like what other things you have going on in life, because sometimes you can 100% put your focus on, helping other people out and ensuring that, they're growing to their potential and they're exceeding and going above and beyond. But for my example that I have for myself, like I have a family as well. So sometimes I got to take some of that bandwidth that I have for people that I work with and, other people that are outside my house. I have to kind of like shrink that a little bit to put a little bit more attention on, my family and things like that. So I think, would you say that being a good leader and an impactful leader is kind of like like a breathing apparatus, or we use obviously in the RPA world a WES. Would you say it's like a breathing WES? Like sometimes it's a that's a huge distance between the two, like your bottom line and your max, or sometimes it's like really short, like you're right there between being a good and an impactful leader.
Well, I think it depends on the situation and your ability to shift the needs
Yeah,
of your family and the needs of your people at work and the mission. You have to be flexible enough to determine what is most important at that moment.
yeah,
Um, and I would say that family is always first. I
mm-hmm,
mean, I've said this to you before, but the reason why we have a military is because you have a family that has a threat.
yeah,
So the family produces a warrior in order to go and address the threat, and he does that or she does that in order to defend the family,
never thought of it
right?
that
Like
way. Yeah,
it's this circle where if you don't take care of the family, then they're not going to prepare the warrior in order to deal with the threat. And so you need to manage those things. I don't believe in work-life balance. I think it's more of work-life integration.
yeah,
I think that our families are meant to be a part of what we're doing, not just like, hey, you stay at home and then I'm going to drive over here and then I'll maybe talk to you about it when I get back.
mm-hmm,
No, I think they should be coming up there. I think that we should be coming down when they need us, doing as much as we can to integrate our family into what we're doing. And if you want to think about who largely joins the military, it's typically people that have family members
yeah,
that are in the military. Um, and the more that you do that, I actually think that's like a model of apprenticeship for children. I think that's how spouses are supposed to function, as supporting one another.
yeah.
As you know, yeah.
So
I don't know if that really answered that question. It's kind of a hard question to answer, but yes, you're going to be teetering on, good and great.
yeah,
Yes, that's going to happen. But you want to be a consistent person in all these aspects of your life. So who you are at home and who you are at church and who you are at work, like you don't want to take one mask off and put it on and like be a hypocrite back and forth. What you want to do is go be a good leader in your house. And
Okay.
whatever that looks like is what you're going to create wherever you go. And
Okay.
if you got a wife that loves you and children that respect you and obey you, and you've got a family that is actually growing and thriving and becoming healthier and happier,
Yeah.
man, you're going to be able to create that sort of environment outside of your
No
home.
matter where you go. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to create it wherever you go because that's what you are doing. That's what you're building. You're being creational. You're building things in life. And so when I walk into the squadron, I mean, I'm thinking about how am I at home?
Yeah.
Who am I to my wife and to my kids and to my brother and my sister and my family? And I try to treat, those that I work with that same sort of respect
Yeah.
and honor.
That makes sense. And I think moving into like what it means to be a young officer, how would you kind of relay that to young officers stepping into their, their new units, especially those who were prior enlisted, right? They go from having a certain perspective of the military to now a completely new environment. Um, and they're struggling to one, they're starting from the bottom again because you're not coming in as a captain or whatever unless you have a specialized degree or whatever. But they're coming in at the bottom again. They're having to kind of like prove themselves again, so they're feeling like they have to, like, I don't know, maybe work 110, maybe 200% as harder than what they've ever had to work before, because like the expectation of them is, because they're a prior enlisted officer, is like, you should know this already. Like, yes, this is your first year as an officer, but there, to me, I'll just give my personal experience. I felt like there was still an expectation for me to act or conduct myself in a certain manner, because I wasn't like just a brand new LT that I was straight out of college. Like I had some, I had some experience. So what advice would you give to, young officers stepping into their first unit to not only know how to balance between, home life and work life, but also be successful as officers as well, but still be successful at home?
Humility and hard work.
Okay.
It's going to go a long way. I don't care if you're a brand new butter bar or if you're a prior enlisted butter bar. You should come in. You should look to your NCOs, and you should learn and
Yeah.
start learning the ropes from. And my dad taught me that when I was first, a second lieutenant, first in the military. Go and find a good NCO and actually listen to them with all humility. Who cares if you technically outrank them? They actually know more about what it is that they're doing
Hmm.
and what it is that you should be doing, and they'll give you a good roadmap.
Yeah.
And I think if you come in there with humility, it's going to go a long way. If you work hard, they're going to see that. If you're an honest and transparent person, that's going to bode well for you. But I will say this, Quincy, I think that there is more expected of you if you come in as a prior enlisted officer.
Yeah.
I personally would expect more from my prior enlisted officers, not just because they know the Air Force and the structure, and it's because they have more life experience often.
Yeah.
If you come into the Air Force later as well, if you're 35 and you're now in the Air Force, you kind of have a similar expectation. Like, well, you're a grown up. Like you've gone through some significant hurdles through your 20s and now into your 30s. So the anticipation is, even though you may be like grandpa lieutenant, you're going to be expected to perform a little bit at a higher level.
Yeah.
Whether that's fair or not, I don't know. I think it's maybe pretty human instincts to look at that and go, oh well, they're older, so they should know better.
When you said grandpa lieutenant, one person came to my mind. I'm pretty sure you know who I'm talking about, but he's on my team, and I'm not gonna say his name.
Yeah.
But moving on, I'd like to maybe get some advice from you for OTS applicants and future officers. So a lot of people watching this are preparing for officer training school. From your perspective, what qualities really stand out to an OTS board, or any board for that matter, or any commissioning source? What qualities in a person, or what things should they be preparing to help them stand out, going up against a board, or things like that?
I'd say first are the easy things like if you have your AFOQT, so all the numbers, right? Or
Yeah.
if you're doing your UFT board and you're doing your TBAS or TBAT or whatever they're calling it now, and you get your Pixum score. I've never been through OTS. I know for ROTC, your GPA and the type of degree that you've got matters. Those are that. I mean, that's kind of like the board answers. They'll literally submit that. Like when you like apply, it'll have like, oh, here's all the requirements. They'll tell you exactly the things that they value.
Yeah.
What I'll say is, number one, be incredibly honest on your endorsement letters. So don't overinflate yourself. But when a letter of recommendation is written for you, ensure that it is honest and it is personal. And I think that actually goes a long way. If you are a DG, a distinguished graduate in something, by all means, you were top of the class. If you just did really well, but you were not a distinguished graduate or an top academic grad or something like that, they may look at that as dishonest or puffing up if you say that you were graduated top of your class in whatever program it is. And I don't want to see people maybe misrepresented the board thinking that maybe they're being dishonest or intentionally trying to pad their endorsement letter.
Yeah.
Even accidentally, because I think sometimes this is accidental. I think people are just trying to put their best foot forward, and they're trying to be able to write a good letter of recommendation. And frankly, sometimes those are incredibly overinflated. But just make sure that what's on there is accurate.
Okay.
And truly personal and heartfelt. I think that's going to go a long way.
I think that'll be the case, but throughout someone's entire package, as long as it's genuine, it's honest, it's heartfelt, like you were saying. Because obviously I'm not at the level of reviewing board packages and stuff like that, but I feel like as a leader, you can kind of sift out like what's genuine and what isn't just by the way things are worded or just how things may sound. Would you agree? Like sometimes that stuff could be easily weeded out.
Yeah, and I think that the board only has a certain amount of time to review all the documents. And so what goes to the board is going to be what you submit in terms of the paperwork. So make sure that the paperwork is complete, make sure it's accurate. The letter of recommendation, make sure it's personal. And they're not going to have a ton of time to look at it. But what they are going to have is lots of them that they're going to be looking at. So there's a compare and contrast that's happening in their minds between all of the different packages that they're looking through in order to determine what the score would be.
Yeah. Okay.
And some of it's like I appreciate how binary and metrics based some of this stuff is because the scores matter, right? But a good, well written, personal, and accurate letter of endorsement also matters.
Yeah.
So and they can compare those.
So that what you just said bred another question in my head before I go on to the next one that I have written down. When you talk about scores, there have been several times over the past few years where people applying for, I'll say specifically OTS boards, and I know you don't really have a lot of experience, like just with the board itself, but just the whole commissioning route you do. I've seen and I've heard and I've seen people comment about what their scores were on the AFOQT and then their Pixum score. And some people will have 99s across the board. And then some people may not have 99s across the board. They may have let's say a 60 Pixum, maybe an okay pilot score, like an 88 on the AFOQT. But, some average quantitative and verbal scores and average rated scores. And sometimes those people with 99s across the board, they don't get picked up. But the people who have like the less than average or maybe the average scores, they get picked up for, let's say, their pilot slot. What do you think could have, other than just because obviously the boards, they look at everything as a whole airman concept, right? Outside of the whole airman concept, what are some things that you think could potentially lead to someone with the top of the line scores not being picked up over the person who has the average, maybe a little bit below average scores?
I think board members are probably aware that the Pixum, Da Vinci Code has been cracked.
Okay.
I think that they're aware that you can do a lot of things in order to get these numbers up.
Yeah.
But their job is to look at the whole picture, the whole person.
Okay.
And determine if this is going to be the right fit. for whatever the program is. And I think specifically with the Pixum scores, yeah, you can be tutored into 99.
Yeah.
I think that that's what the board's thinking, and I'm not going to say that I know, because I don't, but I believe that Pixum score has been cracked.
I never thought about that. That's a interesting perspective, and I could probably agree with you, because there are things out there to help you practice to get a high score. It doesn't necessarily mean that going on you'll be as successful as someone else may be. But next, what are some misconceptions people have about the Air Force? What the Air Force is actually looking for in its future leaders?
Misconceptions. I think maybe they're looking for the gregarious, sort of extroverted people to be, out in front, leaders. I don't think that's the case. I think we need a whole array of perspectives and personalities, and so we need the quiet Steve Jobs type that are working really hard in the background to actually be leaders in many areas. I think right now that it's great that fighter pilots run the Air Force, but I think that if we look at the future, I think that it's gonna be remote and autonomous. I think that when you get into future engagements, air engagements, and beyond, you're going to see that RPAs are in every part of it.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about remotely piloted sub maritime, or ships, or tanks, or things in the air, things in space, whatever it may be, we are going toward remotely piloted or autonomous.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to see more RPA type people actually leading the way. And that means that we need to learn how to cultivate and develop them through our formal processes, whether it's professional military education, giving them opportunities to compete and career broaden, being able to give them more responsibilities and injects and operational planning and crisis action planning and things like that, getting them in AOCs, staffs, getting them in the Joint Staff, getting them in the Pentagon, and create some fighters within the RPA community that can actually continue to advocate for the career field and get potential chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Speaking on, wanting to get, the RPA community into those environments, let's say a brand new lieutenant just graduated from the commissioning source. What would you say is the best way for a brand new lieutenant to build credibility early on to even be considered to be put into those environments or those atmospheres?
Make popcorn. I mean, it's funny, but follow checklists.
Yeah.
Do the little things. Show that you're faithful in the little things. Earn more. Trust, more respect, more honor, by demonstrating that you are a hard worker, prepared, capable, and you're a team player.
Okay. Well, that's I think you've kind of set the expectation, specifically in our squadron, of what a successful lieutenant, successful captain, major, like every tier. I think you've kind of set the expectation. I think we all kind of like go towards that. But it's great to be able to share it with those that are looking to come into the community, not just the RPA community, but just the officer community as well. I just have a few more questions to ask, and we'll kind of close this out. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice when you first started this journey, what would it be?
I think study harder probably would be one, and then I would probably work harder. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like I would probably fly more.
Yeah.
Early on, and figure out how I can balance my family with flying some of the hard missions that we're doing. But I think flying more was really, really important. If we're just talking about career, if we're talking about, a young man, I'd say buy Bitcoin. Just whatever, like invest in Amazon if you're asking me what I think I should have done 20 something years ago. But as an officer, I think just gaining that tactical credibility early and holding it and honing your skill and being excellent at it.
Yeah.
It doesn't always mean fly more, but it does mean work very, very hard at your job.
I think when you talked about, just education wise and studying more, it's interesting. I went to the store the other day and ran across someone, and he was getting my order prepared, and I don't know why I asked him, but I just randomly asked him. I was like, "Do you enjoy your job?" And he was honest. He was like, "No, I don't. This is my first job out of high school." He kind of told me a little bit of his life story, and I'm not one to really recruit people into the Air Force, but he started talking about school. He was like, "Yeah, I didn't really do so well in high school, so there's not a lot of opportunities out there for me and things like that." And so immediately I thought like, well, the Air Force, you can potentially join. You could start off enlisted. And I told him about my time being enlisted, how many countries I've gone to, and how often I've been able to travel and all the experiences I've had. And I eventually was able to get him in contact with a recruiter. So I think your story is just a testament to where you started to where you are now. You're a commander of a squadron. You're leading a unit, and you're saying like you didn't have the best grades coming out of high school and stuff
It
like
was
that.
so
And
bad.
went to community college, and sometimes I feel like a lot of people, maybe young people, kind of kick themselves. They're like, and I was one of them. My grades were not the greatest in high school. I think a few years ago I found my high school transcript, and I think my GPA was like a 2.1, 2.2. And I was like, wow, I really did not do
Yeah.
well in high school. But I look at where I am today, and I look at what hard work, dedication, integrity, resilience, and what all of that stuff can do, and just the right people in your life to kind of push you into certain directions to help you become who you want to be. And that's where you were talking about like that leadership. You build other people up, and I do have people in my life that were great leaders, and they help build me up. And my way to do that or my way to give back is to just pay it forward, to other people, because I know where I am because of other people, and I want other people to have that same story. They're there because I was able to, sow into them, believe in them, encourage them, and things like that. So I think
Well, they need to take that risk, right?
yeah,
Because that's the thing. I guess if you're asking again, like, what would I tell somebody is scare yourself a little bit every day,
yeah,
push yourself past your boundaries, try harder to just figure out, like, we limit ourselves. You limited yourself. I limited myself.
yeah,
Um, take off all of these false limitations that are in our mind and in our culture and just go and be absolutely fearless
mm-hmm,
and go after something that scares you a little bit. Go do it. Go fly an airplane that you think is the hardest airplane in the world. Like, go try it. Like, go scare yourself a little bit with what degree you're going to go get, or scare yourself with how hard you're going to work at whatever business it is that you're in.
yeah,
But find that next level, that other gear that you didn't think that you had.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I got two more questions, and then we'll be
Yeah.
done, and I'll let you go and relax and enjoy your weekend.
No, you're good.
Is there a book quote or experience that had a big influence on the way you lead today?
Um, I can think of a lot of quotes. Matter of fact, I've got a book here of just quotes that I write down as I go. Some of them that I've read at least recently that have been really influential is that you can't manage what you can't measure.
Yeah,
So it's very important for you to be able to, if you're going to try something, you need to be able to put up some metrics that you're going to measure along the way to determine if it's effective. 60% of leadership is anticipation. I believe that to be true.
okay,
Being able to see and forecast what's happening is a part of leading, not just being told what to do. And then you're just a manager, but you actually have to have some sort of vision out there into the future as to what you think is going to happen, and trust that instinct sometimes.
yeah,
And other times, if the data tells you that it's not going to work, I mean, you might need to trust the data on that. I do think that great leaders understand that they are also servants. that they have a high responsibility to not serve themselves, but to serve those that are entrusted to them.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be a sacrificial sort of leadership. It's important that we are willing to put ourselves sacrificially out there before we put others out there. I think that's an important biblical principle that I think is tried and true for thousands of years. I mean, those are just a few that have recently impacted me. Oh, another one, a Theodore Roosevelt one that I really like is comparison is the thief of joy.
Comparison is the thief of joy. I get that, yeah.
You start thinking about how often you compare to what somebody else has or doesn't have.
And who'd you say said that?
Theodore Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt. Okay.
It steals your joy. I'll tell you a little story here, though, real quick. Okay.
Yeah.
I've done this before. I've told this story before, but you know, I have 8 children, and so one day I decided to give my kids ice cream, and so I put them on 8 stools right here at our counter, and I go to my youngest and I give him a scoop of ice cream, and he is absolutely excited, but the other ones are like, wait, what about us?
Yeah.
So because one person got something good, the others feel as though they were wronged because they also didn't get something good. But then I go to my second kid and I give him 2 scoops. And all of a sudden, the one that just had 1 scoop feels like something was done to him that was wrong as well.
Yeah.
And then the other 6 feel like, man, this is a double injustice. This is even worse. And then by the end of it, you know, you keep giving more scoops, and the 8th kid gets 8 scoops, right?
Yeah.
And everyone else is mad because they got more ice cream than they did. And they all got ice cream.
Yeah.
And it's all commensurate with maybe their age or their ability or something like that. And so it's dangerous to compare ourselves to those that are sitting next to us. We should challenge ourselves, compete against ourselves, use others in order to set some standards in our lives to help us with that.
Yeah.
But don't let that comparison steal your joy.
My question to that story is, what type of bowls do you have where you could fit 8 scoops of ice? 8 scoops.
We got all the bowls. We got little ones and we got big ones.
All right. Last question, and then we'll close this out. For anyone out there that's watching who wants to follow a similar path, aviation leadership, or any commissioning route, ROTC, OTS, or the academy, what final thought would you want to leave them with?
There's no secret. There's work hard, and whatever it is that you're doing, do it well and do it with a great attitude and build other people up around you.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's making burgers. Do that well, and people will recognize that you are serving in such a way that is just unique than others that are just doing it because they want a paycheck. Pour your heart into whatever it is that you're doing, and people will recognize. You're not doing it for the recognition, but people will recognize that is distinct, that is unique, that is valuable.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I think those statements will help a lot of people out. I know certain things like that have been said to me over my career have helped me out tremendously, and I'm going big places, I feel like, and gonna do what I can to help out as many people as I can, and continue to build up other people. But I wanted to say thank you so much for sitting down and doing this interview with me. I know you had probably a long day at work, and you did this as soon as you got home. But I really do appreciate it. I'm sure the people watching appreciate this. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me on the Officers Commission.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Quincy. I appreciate what you're doing here. And I pray God blesses you in this endeavor.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, sir.
All right.
Hi, and thank you so much for watching this episode on the Officers Commission. If you liked the video that you just watched, make sure you hit the like button, you hit the subscribe button, and you hit the notification bell so that the next time I upload any type of content, whether it's an interview or advice on how to become an officer in the United States Air Force, you're immediately notified and you can click on that video and watch it. Thank you so much, and I hope you have an amazing day. See ya.